Welcome to Rebel Chaser. My name is Gail, and I've got a video for you from Judge Wolf, and I'll just let you guys watch.
Rule has been requested. Anyone who's going to testify in this case must go outside of the courtroom and remain outside of the courtroom until you are called to testify. You're not to discuss the testimony of any other witness with anyone until you yourself have been called to testify. Counsel are under continuing duty to ensure that the rule is complied with. All right, so that we're clear, the court agrees with respondent counsel that the temporary restraining order is to be considered null and void based upon the fact that there was no compliance with Rule 65.03, subsection 1B, I think it is, that there was no effort made to notify the opposing party or demonstrate reasons why it should not be notified. So, Ms. Courier,
Yes,
are you ready to call your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. I would like to call my client, Mr. Brian Taylor.
All right, Mr. Rye, come forward, raise your right hand, let's place you under oath.
You solemnly swear the testimony about the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Officer Tomlinson, if you'll turn that podium so that it faces the witness stand, please.
Can you please state your name?
Brian Taylor.
And Mr. Rye, do you have children with Miss Higgins?
Yes, I did.
All right, how many children do you have?
Two.
And what are their names?
Mallory Ruff and Jason Ruff.
And their ages?
8 and 6.
Okay, and you were previously married to Miss Higgins?
Correct.
Okay, and as a result of that divorce, was there a parenting plan entered?
Correct.
Yes, so what is that current parenting plan?
It's almost 100% 50-50. Split decision also.
And overall, prior to recently, how would you say that parenting plan has been going?
For the most part, we've been fairly civil.
Has anything recently changed that's caused you concern?
With the parenting plan?
Yes.
Parenting plan, no.
Okay. Have you been informed of anything concerning, regarding what happens with your children while they're at Miss Higgins' home?
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that?
Objection, failure to lay a foundation as to how he would have this knowledge.
Sustained.
Have either one of your children told you anything that would,
Objection to the leading.
have you
Your
been,
objection is to leading.
Yes, sir.
Sustained, don't lead the witness.
have you become aware of any information that's caused you concern?
Yes.
And how did you become aware of that?
It was brought to me by my oldest daughter.
And what was the nature of the conversations you've had with your oldest daughter?
You want examples of what she said? Excessive drinking.
Objections as to the hearsay.
Well, there is an exception to hearsay regarding the information obtained from minor children of any sort of abuse, physical or abuse. So I have to hear what the statement is to be able to determine whether it meets that exception or not. So I'm the trier of fact. So if it meets that exception, then it may be allowable. If it doesn't meet that exception, it may not be.
Yes, sir.
Ask the question again.
What was the nature of the conversations that you had with your oldest daughter?
So excessive drinking in a vehicle also. Being yelled and screamed at. Demoralized. That's the main points of it.
Okay, and who was the main perpetrator of this?
Would be Brandon Bradford and Elizabeth Higgins.
Okay, and who is Mr. Bradford to the children?
That would be, I would call him a stepfather because they're not married.
And has there been anything that you personally noticed?
Personally, yes, I've seen alcohol in the vehicles, here, pick up and drop.
And what is your impression of your children's demeanor when it comes to returning to the mother's home?
Returning, they're always seen, most of the time seen kind of depressed.
Governor, I'm going to object to his use of the term depressed. I think he can describe what he sees, but using that term, I'm going to object.
All right, the objection is to the form of the question, or actually to the form of his answer. You can describe what you observe about your children because that's a sensory sensory perception that you yourself can see and relate to. But you were describing it as depressed, and that is a value term. In other words, that's a judgment that you're making, a subjective judgment that you're making regarding that. So you can describe what you observe, but you can't describe it as being depressed or not. So I sustain the objection as to the form of the answer.
Okay, so we'll replace that.
Okay. Oftentimes they would be very clingy to me and their stepmother, crying, begging not to go back.
And about how long would you say this behavior has been going on?
For a while, at least over a year, but it's becoming more and more prevalent.
Okay. So what has brought you to this point to feel the need to contact my office and have our office file this petition for modification?
Okay, drop off, the last drop off we had, Mr. Bradford was drinking in a side by side while dropping the kids off. And then Caitlin came to us Sunday saying she's fearful of going back.
So do you believe it is in the children's best interest for temporary modification of the parenting plan to occur?
Yes.
Do you think that they are in immediate threat of harm if the parenting plan is not modified?
Yes.
Are you concerned with what's going to happen to your children?
Yes.
I have nothing further from this witness, Your Honor.
All right. And do you hold on a second? You don't get off that easy. So you have questions for this witness?
Okay.
Oh, well, you do get off that easy. Thank you. You may sit down. You may call your next witness.
I would like to call Ms. Bailey, right?
You come around, please. Raise your right hand and face our clerk.
solemnly swear the testimony about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do. Thank you very much.
Scoot right up there to that microphone and speak clearly into it, please.
Yes, sir. Can you please state your name? Bailey Wainwright. And Ms. Wright, how do you know Mr. Brian Wright? He's my husband. And have you interacted with the children he has with Ms. Higgins? Yes, since 2022. Okay. How would you describe your relationship with the children? They're my mini shadows. We're very close. So are you pretty familiar with the interactions that Mr. Wright currently has with Ms. Higgins, the children's mother? Yes. How would you describe your opinion of their interactions and their co-parenting? For the most part, they're completely civil. I mean, any discretions, they try and sort them out. Okay. Has something recently changed that has caused you concern? Yes. And how were you made aware of this? At our last custody exchange where we picked up the girls, we noticed that Brandon had been drinking and driving again, and then Caitlin brought it to our attention Sunday. Things that were going on within the home. She brought it to my attention. And so you personally had a conversation with Caseline? Yes, ma'am. And what is your opinion of the children's demeanor with regards to returning to their mothers? Caseline doesn't want to. She's
Objection
scared.
as to the hearsay.
Sustained.
Caseline is scared to go
You
home.
can't, when I sustain an objection to a question, that means you can't answer it. So they can ask you another question, but you can answer that one, but the one that I sustained the objection to, you cannot answer.
Yes, sir. Understood. My apologies.
That's all right.
Is there anything you personally noticed with the children's moods and or any behavior changes? Yes. Would you be able to elaborate on that? Caseline has become more distant to her mother.
Objection as to how she would have this knowledge, Your Honor.
I'll sustain the objection unless you lay a foundation to show what knowledge or how she would have obtained that knowledge.
Have you had any conversations with Caseline about the concerns she has with returning to her mother? Yes, multiple. Okay, and what is your opinion of the nature of those conversations? They come off very true. I mean, Caseline, typically she wouldn't bring stuff like that up. So for her to bring it to her attention, and this is the second time she's brought it to my attention. The first one was back in February after her well child visit, where I had a conversation with Ms. Higgins about it. After the well child that her and I both attended for the children. And then I explained to Caseline her wishes weren't able to be done due to she couldn't just stay with us full time. We couldn't keep her from
Objection
going
to the
back.
hearsay. She's getting in at back door. She's saying what the child told her.
Sustain the objection.
So you tried to bring up some of these concerns to Ms. Higgins? Yes, multiple times. And what has been the response to those conversations? To the alcohol or the aggression within the house? The alcohol, the last time we had an encounter with it, she told us that the alcohol in the vehicle was from last night, that it's not that big of a deal and it's none of our concern. The terms of her and Caseline's relationship, we discussed it. I told her Caseline's concerns and she said that Caseline was being sensitive. It's not that big of a deal. She's just mad that she's being held accountable and said that Caseline was over exaggerating. Do you think, is it in your opinion that the current parenting plan is no longer in the minor children's best interest?
Objection, that's not for her to decide today.
Sustain the objection that is the ultimate issue for this court, and her opinion is not relevant on the issue since she is not one of the biological parents.
Do you think that there is a safety concern with the children returning to their mother's home? Yes. I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Ms. Cash, Christinus, how do you pronounce your last name?
Christinus, but Cash is fine. It's hyphenated and it's
Doesn't
easier.
matter to me.
Yes, sir.
I'll call you whatever you want me to call you, but
Yes, sir.
Christinus. All right, Ms. Christinus, do you wish to ask questions of this
I
witness?
do not, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. You can have a seat in the courtroom now.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Courier, do you have any other witnesses?
Your Honor, I'm not sure how you want to address this. The child is present. I'm not sure if you would like to hear from her in a private setting, but she is where the nature of my client's concerns have come from, so it may be beneficial to hear from
How old
her.
is the child?
She is
8.
8.
Well, if you're calling a child of 8 years of age as a fact witness, then there are two options. One of them, you can put her on the stand and let her testify in open court. The other is that you can, if both sides agree, you can have the testimony offered in chambers with counsel for the parties and the court staff, the only ones who would be present. We don't have a court reporter here, so it would just be the two lawyers for the parties, me and the court staff, the clerk would be present during that, but it requires the consent of both parties for that. You want to talk it over with, do you have any opposition to this child testifying in chambers?
Your Honor, I guess this is completely at Your Honor's discretion. I would prefer us to not put this little 8-year-old girl
I
through a
would prefer
traumatic
that too.
situation. For the court to hear the remainder of the proof and decide if the child's testimony is going to be necessary. This is something she'll never forget for the rest of her life, having being called to do this. But if the court is going to go ahead and take her up in the order that the petitioners are preferring to do, I am absolutely in agreement to being in chambers.
Do you have any other proof other than this child?
Oh, no, Your Honor.
Are you going to offer any evidence or proof?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to hear their proof before I make a decision on whether or not I'm going to hear from this child. It is unfortunate that an 8-year-old child is required to come in and testify in a hearing. But based on the circumstances, it may be necessary to hear from the child in order to determine whether there's any significant threat to the child's well-being. But at this point, the court is required to consider the wishes of a child of 12 years of age or older, the greater weight to be given to the preferences of an older child. An 8-year-old child is one of those gray areas where the question of whether or not the child understands the right to tell the truth under oath and so forth becomes an issue. So I'm going to hear from the respondent's proof, and then I'm not foreclosing you to reopen your proof to have this child offered, but I'm going to hear what other evidence there is first. All right? Okay. Ms. Christina, if you wish to put on your proof, I'll allow you to do that now.
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to call my client, please.
Right. Ms. Higgins, if you'll come around, please.
Swear the testimony about the current vessel prison. Yes. State your name before.
Elizabeth Nicole Higgins.
Ms. Higgins, you are the mother of Mallory, and you're gonna have to say her name for me. Caseland. Okay, I say it wrong every single time. And where do they attend school?
At Tennessee Ridge Elementary.
Okay, and what grades are they in?
Caseland is in 3rd, Mallory is in pre-K.
Okay, and where are you employed?
At Tennessee Ridge Elementary.
And what do you do there?
I'm a teacher's assistant.
Okay, and how long have you been employed there?
Almost 3 years.
And what grades do you work with at that school?
Mainly kindergarten and first, but I go around to all the grades, check on teachers, and just whatever they need to do.
So you're around your children every day while they're at school?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And where do you live?
In Waverly.
And who do you live with?
Brandon Bradford.
Brandon Bradford.
Yes, ma'am.
And who is Brandon Bradford?
He's my boyfriend.
And how long have you all been in a relationship?
3.5 years.
Okay. And do you have any other kids other than the minor children at issue in this cause of action?
Yes, I have a 5-month-old with Brandon.
Okay, and what is her name?
Bradley Bradford.
Okay, are you breastfeeding her?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So do you drink while during the past 5 months that you've been breastfeeding?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And where does Brandon work?
He works at Palmer's Contractors in Camden.
What does he do for a living?
He is in the Iron Workers Union.
And how long has he been employed at that current position?
For about 2 years.
Okay. And you were served with a petition that was filed in this matter on or around April the 7th, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And on April the 7th, when this petition was filed, you and Mr. Wright, you all share a week on, week off with your 2 minor girls, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And when this petition was filed, whose parenting time was it?
It was my week.
And what day of the week was that on?
It was on a Monday.
Okay, had you you get them on Fridays, correct?
Yes.
So you had them from Friday to Monday?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, and so you all had an exchange on Friday.
Yes.
Did you pick them up from Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Okay, you did?
Yes.
And was anybody in the vehicle with you?
Just my 5-month-old.
So Mr. Brandon wasn't even in the vehicle, correct?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and when you were served with this petition or found out about this petition, tell the court about that incident, what happened.
I went to their house. to just get the
To whose
kids.
house?
I went to Brian's house to get the kids softball uniforms because our youngest Mallory had a game that night. And at the exchange, they didn't have their uniforms. So we agreed that I would go give them some point and have them for their games. So I went to his house to just simply pick up softball uniforms to go back to my house to get our youngest ready for her softball game.
Did you have the girls with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And Brian approached my vehicle with his mother and Bailey and wanted them to get out of the vehicle to go inside the house to see what their Mimi, Bailey's mom, had got them from vacation. And I said, that's fine, just make it quick. We have to get ready for softball. He took the kids in the house and his mother is the one that handed me the paperwork.
And when she handed you the paperwork, what did she say to you?
She said nothing.
She didn't say to you, we're taking the children from you.
No, that I immediately looked at the paper and I said, what is this about? She handed it to me, walked away. And that's when Bailey, who was still standing at my vehicle, said, we're taking the kids.
So Mr. Rye's wife said that to you.
Yes.
Could you still visibly see the two girls
No, they were in his house at this point.
before you left that or pulled out of the driveway that day? Were you able to see the girls?
Yes.
And what were their reactions?
They were standing in his doorway crying because they didn't know why they couldn't go back to their mom, because in their minds, we were just getting softball uniforms and we were going back home to get ready for softball.
Okay. And this was on a Monday.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So they go to school where you go to school, or they had school the following day.
I went to Erin Elementary School, because at the time I didn't know, or the next day I actually didn't go to work.
Okay. And
So
what
I
about,
don't know if they were there or not.
and what about Wednesday?
On Wednesday, I had went to the other elementary school to work because I wanted to just have a day where I didn't have to worry about things. So I went to the other elementary school because I didn't know how they were going to react with the situation.
And you hadn't yet met with me yet either, correct?
Correct.
And so you didn't know what kind of the restrictions were as it relates to the restraining order, correct?
Correct. I thought that I wasn't allowed to be around them, period,
Okay. What day were they brought back to school?
on Thursday.
And did you see your girls that day?
Yes.
And what,
Thursday.
how did they act to you? You can't tell me what they said, but tell me what they did.
Immediately hugged me, kissed me, and it was just, I'll miss my mama. I don't know what happened.
Did they say that to you?
Yes,
Okay. Did they make any comments to you as to coming back to your house?
yes. Mallory, our youngest, was like, am I going home with you today? Can I go home with you today? And I just said, in a couple of days, we'll see.
Okay. And were they at school any other time that week?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And is your school currently taking TCAP testing?
Yes, ma'am.
And as we sit here today, is your little third grader that's out in the hallway, is she supposed to be taking her little TCAP testing right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Was she at school yesterday and did she take it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the allegations that have been made in this petition. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Does your boyfriend or Brandon, does he drink alcohol?
Yes, he does.
Okay. And what is his level of drinking? Describe to the court the life in a day in the life of you guys.
Whenever he gets home from work, he has a couple beers, just a normal de-stressing from the day
Okay. And what time does he usually get home from work?
at 4:00.
Okay. And do you cook dinner? Does he cook dinner? Do y'all cook dinner together?
It just depends. Some nights I might cook, some nights he might cook. If he's grilling, he will cook. It just depends on if I'm feeding our baby, whether he cooks or I cook.
Okay. And what time do you all usually go to bed? Do you go to bed together? What does that look like?
Yes, we give the kids baths about 7:00. They are in the bed at 7:30. We stay up a little bit later and watch TV, and then we are normally in bed at 9:30 to 10.
Okay. Sure. So from the time he gets home at 4 to the time he goes to bed at 9:30 or 10, would you say that he gets intoxicated at all during the week?
Absolutely not.
Okay. What about your weekends?
On the weekends, he might have a couple more if we're just at the house. But if we go anywhere out to eat or anything, if he does consume any alcohol, then obviously I'm the one that drives home. And if he's had any alcohol before we go out to eat, I'm the one that drives there.
Okay. To your knowledge, has Mr. Brandon Bradford ever had a DUI charge?
No, ma'am.
Any sort of charge related to alcohol?
He had an open container ticket about 2 years ago, and our children were not present.
Okay. And so you have heard testimony today provided by the petitioners that Mr. Brandon Bradford drinks and essentially drives your children around a vehicle. Is that true?
No, ma'am.
Okay, tell the court what if anything happens?
If anything, it might have just been a beer left over from when we were just at the house, and it was simply just left from a long time ago. He does not ever drink and drive, especially with our children.
Okay. What is the relationship between Mr. Bradford and the girls?
He is a dad.
What do they call him?
They call him Daddy Brandon.
And how long have they called him that?
About 2 months into our relationship.
Okay, and they also call Mr. Rye's wife, they refer to her as a parental type figure as well, correct?
Yes.
What do they call her?
They call her mommy.
Okay, and so for the most part, how would you describe their relationship with Brandon, the girls' relationship?
He's a dad to them when they're at our house. He goes outside, plays softball with them. He does baths if he needs to. He takes care of them. Anything that they need when they're there. He's their other parent when they're at our house.
Does he go to their activities?
Yes.
Does he attend their school activities?
Yes.
And does he work with them with their homework?
Yes.
Describe that to the court.
Recently, Caitlin has been struggling with her ELA, and in the afternoons, he has made her pick out a book that she enjoys to read, and he has come up with his own questions as like a little fake test to ask her after she's read the books.
Okay. At any time at any point in time that you've ever had Mr. Bradford around your girls, what kind of situation is it if the girls get in trouble?
If the girls get in trouble, I'm the one that gets onto them. If I have said it multiple times, then he will say, "Hey, what did your mama tell you?" Never once has he yelled his voice at them or even thought about getting onto them unless I get onto them first.
Okay. And has Mr. Bradford ever spanked the children?
No more than just a little pop on their leg saying to get their attention.
Okay. So do you have any idea of what the petitioners are referring to as it relates to demeaning or being mentally abusive or psychologically abusive to your minor children?
No, ma'am.
Are you adamant that hasn't ever happened?
No, it has never happened.
And is he psychologically or mentally or verbally abusive to you?
Absolutely.
What is your relationship like with him?
Very happy. We've been together for 3.5 years. He's never for 1 second raised his voice at me. He's never raised his hands at me. We have a normal, healthy relationship.
Okay. So do you have any idea what the petitioners are speaking of as it relates to there being some sort of volatile relationship between you and Mr. Bradford?
No, ma'am, I have no idea.
Have the police ever been called to your home?
Nope.
Any domestic violence issues? And have you ever been taken to the hospital because you got beat up real bad by Mr. Bradford?
No, ma'am.
DCS ever come to your house and said, "Hey, we've had reports that he's beating up the kids"?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And one thing I also wanted to ask you, since this petition was filed, you have a little 5-month-old in your house, don't you?
Correct.
Has the Department of Children's Services contacted you and said that somebody's reported to them that there is a volatile relationship and a bunch of alcoholics hanging out over there taking care of a 5-month-old?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And so tell the court about what you heard the petitioners say as it relates to Caitlin's recent behaviors. Have you seen some sort of changes in Caitlin lately as it relates to her behaviors? From your perspective.
From my perspective as her mother, she does seem very upset about things. She's only 8 years old. She witnessed me and their father being together. She has witnessed everything. So in her mind, she knows what it's like to have mom and dad. And then now she has another mom and another dad. And to her knowledge, she's just very confused.
Have there been times, and I'm not asking you to tell me what she says, have there been times when she's come to you and said that things were going on at their house that she wasn't happy with?
Absolutely.
And did you run up to the court and make a bunch of false allegations against the father or Bailey as a result of any statements made to you by Caitlin?
No, ma'am.
Do you believe that it would have been appropriate at that point in time for you to have done something to get Dad out of her life because she made these statements to you?
Correct. I would not have done that.
What would you have done?
I would have contacted him and said, hey, our 8-month-old said these things.
Or 8-year-old?
Yeah. Are they true or not?
And have you done that in the past?
I have. There's been times where she comes back to us and she says things because she's 8 years old. She doesn't understand certain situations. And she's come to us and said, hey, when I was at my daddy's, this happened. Or I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do that. And I just say, well, you know, you have to go to your daddy's. It'll be all right. And then we just try to help her through whatever situation she has.
So tell the court, because there was some discussion or allegations in the petition filed by the petitioners that relates to Caitlin needing some therapy. Tell the court about how that issue came about. And when.
She had, I mean, she's seen it all. She's been there from day one of our divorce, us splitting up everything. So I had suggested that one of our school counselors, we have two. We have a Tennessee Voices that come to our schools on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then we have a regular guidance counselor that's there on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I went to both of them and said, hey, when you get time, if you could just do a pop-in visit with her, I feel like she could really benefit from that.
And when did you do that?
Just a couple months ago.
And when you did that, did you discuss that at the issue of therapy with the father?
Yes.
And did you contact him and tell him, hey, I've done this, or I'm going to do this?
Yes.
Yes, you did?
Yes.
And what was his response?
He said it was a good idea that we should do that.
Other than that particular discussion between you and father, have you all ever had any other discussions regarding getting Caitlin into therapy?
No.
Never?
Never.
They've never reached out to you and said, we want to put the kids in therapy, and you said, no, I don't think that's a good idea. That never happened?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Have you ever been charged with a DUI or driving under the influence or any sort of alcohol-related type violation of the law?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Have you ever been charged with any crime whatsoever?
Just a seatbelt ticket.
Okay. So recently in February of 2025, was there some discussion? How do you and Bailey and Miss Ryan and father, how do you all usually correspond with one another?
Through a text message.
You all usually correspond through text message?
Yes, I have his phone number, which I think it's just an app phone number. And then I have her personal cell phone number.
Okay. And did you all recently have conversations regarding your all's relationship and how that was going? And when I say relationship, I mean the co-parenting type relationship.
Yes, after the kids' pageants in February
Of 2025?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
what, 45 days ago?
Yes.
Approximate?
I went to eat with them for lunch after the girls'
Went
pageants.
to eat with whom?
With Tyler and Bailey.
You by yourself?
Yes,
Okay.
with my other daughter, Bradley,
Okay.
and the kids.
Okay.
We all went out to eat lunch together. And the kids wanted me to come to lunch with them. And after we left lunch, Tyler contacted me and wanted to thank me about how great of a mom that I am for them.
Okay. I'm going to hand you a document and ask you to identify it.
Yes, ma'am.
Are these the text messages that you, how did he contact you that day?
He texted me.
And is this the text message, or is this the string of text messages that he sent you?
Yes.
And go to his section, please. Did he say he had concerns about you drinking alcohol around the kids?
No, ma'am.
About you being an alcoholic or being verbally or psychologically abusive to them?
No, ma'am.
Did he say anything about Brandon doing those things?
No, ma'am.
In fact, he said the opposite, didn't he?
Exactly.
What did he say? Read that to the court.
This first message is what Bailey had sent me.
Miss Wright, his wife?
Yes.
Okay.
He said, "You are and always will be their mama, and I'm proud to have you as their mother and do appreciate all you do. You always have done right by them and taken great care of them, and it's nice knowing Brendan's there for you and them. Like I said, I honestly feel like me and Brendan could be friends. Hell, him and I could maybe go together with Caitlin and get her back into hunting. Who knows? I just want the girls to be happy and to know that there's no choosing, that they have all of us whenever," and then it cut off.
And what was your response to him?
My response was, it doesn't have the whole thing, but I just said, that she doesn't want to go hunting with him. I think that she thinks that that's just y'all's thing, and she doesn't want to upset you if she does go with him about taking her hunting.
Okay, and you said that Miss Wright reached out to you that day as well.
Yes,
correct?
she did.
What did she say to you?
She said, "You'd be amazed at how many compliments we get for it and the impact that it has on the girls. I want to apologize. Also, I know in the past that you felt like I have overstepped. Me as a mom trying to imagine how that feels, I'm really sorry that I have ever stepped on your toes when it comes to the girls. I hope you know and see how much I love them and just want the absolute best for them. I live and breathe for them the same way I do for my own biological children. But I'm also very thankful for all the work and effort you do for not only them, but for the community and co-parenting as well. Everything that comes with our lives we have. I guess what I'm getting at is thank you, and I'm very appreciative of you and all that you do, and Brendan, both for the girls. You are more than just parents."
Well, I'd like to submit those as an exhibit, please.
Look at his,
I'm gonna object to the use of this. There is no distinction of who sent what, dates, full context of the conversations.
My client's identified. them, Your
she's
Honor.
identified the conversations being text messages between your client, his wife, and her. And as far as the timing of it, she's indicated that it was after the meal that they shared in February, so I'll overrule the objection.
You heard Ms. Wright testify that they've reached out to you before and said, we're concerned that Brandon's an alcoholic and he's being abusive to the children. Is that true?
No,
Has she ever reached out to you and had a conversation with you about that they were concerned that Brandon posed a risk of harm or danger to the children?
no, ma'am.
Ever?
No,
You've never had that conversation with her?
no,
Have you ever had that conversation with her father?
no,
Have they ever said, we think he's a risk of harm or danger to the children and this is why, these are our concerns?
no, ma'am.
If they have done that, would you have listened?
Absolutely.
Would you, if it were true, would you have done something about it?
Absolutely.
But that's never happened, has it?
No,
Have they ever approached you and said that you pose a risk of harm or danger to your children?
no, ma'am.
Has she ever called you and said, I have concerns?
No.
Okay. Has Mr. Wright ever contacted you and said, I have concerns?
No.
Okay. Those are my questions, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Courier, do you have questions for the witness?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. Ms. Christina, do you have any other witnesses?
Yes, sir. I would like to call. Hold on, I got my list. Emily Moore, she's out in the hall.
All right. Or raise your right hand and be placed under oath. You come around and have a seat, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hi, good morning. Please state your name for the court.
Emily Moore.
Ms. Moore, where are you employed?
I am employed at Smith Ridge Elementary School.
And what is your position there?
Assistant principal and librarian.
Okay, how long have you been employed there?
in that school 1 year.
Okay, so how long have you known my client?
I have known her since she was in middle school, but on a professional level, I've known her this year.
Okay, and so do you see her during the weekdays? How often do you see her during the weekdays interact with other people's children?
As assistant principal, I am in charge of the parapros of our school. So we have 5 general ed aides and we have 5 special ed aides, and she works directly underneath my supervision.
Okay, and how often do you see her on a daily basis?
Every day.
How often every day?
Because our classes are so small, I do have library, and she is the one aide who works with all grades because of her skills. And so she has her classes in my library, and I would say out of a day, 3 to 4 hours. Monday, that's actually Monday through Friday. And then on certain days, if I need to step out, I will call her to be my replacement.
Have you been involved with, you have knowledge as to why you're here today, correct?
Yes,
And I appreciate you being here because I know you have TCAP testing going on right now, so I'll try to be fast. Do you have knowledge as to why you're here today?
Yes.
And have you been approached by Mr. and Mrs. Rice since they filed this petition?
Not for me, myself.
Not you directly?
No.
Do you have knowledge as to whether they've come up to the school?
Yes,
Okay, so you know what allegations they're making against my client, Ms. Higgins, correct?
not in great detail, but yes, I do.
Okay. And at any point in time, at any day over the past year, let's just say that you've known her and you've seen her at school interact with other people's children, have you ever had concerns that she was a threat of harm or danger to other people's children? We'll start there.
No, absolutely not.
Have you ever seen her intoxicated during the day?
No.
Have you ever believed that she was under the influence of any mind-altering substance
No.
during the day at work?
No.
Have you ever seen her be inappropriate at any point in time with her own children?
No.
Okay, have you seen her interact with her children?
Yes,
What's their relationship like that you've seen?
typical mother. Kids, whenever they see her in the hallway, that's mom, they might say hi. If she's with another group of kids, she'll acknowledge them and send them on her way, where she can do her job, but never has it been something that I've ever been.
Do you, from what you've seen and observed, do you believe she meets all their needs?
Yes.
Have you ever had any concerns that they were in threat of harm or danger while in the care of their mother? Do you know her husband, Brandon?
I know of him. We happen to have the same last name, and that whenever she first told me about him, I was seeing if we were related of any way, but not that I'm aware of.
And you've known her, you said, since middle school.
Yes.
And so have you ever known or had reason to believe that she would be a threat of harm or danger to her children or anybody else's children?
Absolutely not.
Do you believe that she would ever have her children around anybody that would be a threat of harm or danger to
I
them?
can't see that.
You believe she's a good mother?
I do.
Thank you. I appreciate you being
You're
here.
welcome.
You may cross-examine further.
So, I believe you just testified, you have never personally been around Ms. Higgins' boyfriend?
No.
No.
Well, I actually am in the process of building a house, and it happens to be on Halls Creek Road. And the other day they stopped and just toured the house, just a regular conversation. It was just the 2 of them and a baby. And other than that, no.
So what kind of interactions have you had with Ms. Higgins and the children outside of school?
Other than seeing them maybe in town, at the grocery store, something like that, nothing.
So do you have any personal knowledge of what actually goes on in Ms. Higgins' household?
Other than her, just us working together, we're a very small school, and if there was something going on, we usually know the other dramas of people's lives. And so she's never said anything in the year that we've worked together inappropriate about her relationship, or if you're fighting with your husband, we do that often. I've never heard anything like that. No.
I have nothing from you on it.
You redirect?
Just really quick. And that's one of the questions I was kind of going to ask you. I'm glad she kind of did this. I'm from Murfreesboro, big metropolis. I'm just kidding. But this seems like a small town. And how long have you lived here?
It doesn't just seem like a small town. It is a small
I think it's an
town.
Irish town.
I grew up here, so I can say that. So.
It was a great job.
I've moved into this county in '93. I've been teaching the school system for over 25 years. I had Tyler in class. I've had Nikki in class. I probably much have everybody.
So does everybody know everybody's business in this town? If you,
I would honestly, that's a problem. Anytime that I'm ever called into court, they usually like, okay, well, you've had everybody, you
Sure.
you can go on. So yes, it is a very small town. Everybody knows, or hears. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's always true, but there's usually some type of seed that somebody is floating around.
Based on having lived here that long and having known my client that long, have you ever had any concerns with her being a danger to anyone?
No, not at all.
Have you ever heard any rumors about Mr. Brandon being a danger to anyone?
No.
And you feel like that if there was some sort of volatile relationship between them, or she was being abused by him, or if the children were being abused, do you feel like you would know?
I definitely think that we would have some type of insight just because it is a small town.
Has that ever even been alluded to? Has that ever even been
Never.
a bleep on your radar?
Never.
All right, those are my questions, Your Honor.
You recross. Thank you, ma'am. You may step down and you may stay, or you may go and resume your job. So,
Thank you very much.
any other
No,
witnesses?
sir.
All right, they have rested their proof. I will tell you that, in my opinion, it is not going to be necessary for this court to hear from the minor child. And I don't make that decision lightly, but the fact of the matter is that it seems to me that the main issue in this case is the alcohol consumption, or the alleged alcohol consumption that's taking place. This indication that I've been given on this text messages, that's exactly the kind of relationship that this court often encourages, or always encourages, and always suggests to people that you try to have. Even Mr. Rye was talking about the parenting plan have worked well and so forth. Minor children are put in the middle of a divorce and then introduced to new parties on both sides, calling them Daddy Brandon, or calling Miss Rye Mommy and so forth. That can be a little confusing to them. You know, if they're not used to having a lot of alcohol in their life, and then suddenly there's one party that's drinking regularly, that can be a problem as well. I don't believe that it's in this child's best interest for me to bring her in here and have her testify in a proceeding on a temporary basis. Instead, what I'm going to do is to put an order down. Obviously the restraining order is dissolved because in this court's opinion, it was probably invalid at the time it was issued due to a lack of compliance with Rule 65.03. But instead, I'm going to put down a temporary order that's just going to say the following: that there will be no alcohol consumption by anyone in the home where these children are on both sides of this equation. Applies to Mr. Rye and his family, applies to Ms. Higgins and her situation with Brandon. You only have the children every other week, if that's and if Brandon can't stop drinking alcohol every day for 1 week, then he has an alcohol problem and he needs to get that addressed. He sounds like he's not had I mean, I understand the allegations are there, and this is a temporary hearing, so I may hear more proof that concerns this issue later, or one of the other judges. But on a temporary basis, I'm simply going to say that he will not be consuming alcohol. And you're saying you don't consume alcohol because you're breastfeeding, so it won't be a problem for you not to consume alcohol. During the week that the children are present, during the time that you're exercising your residential time under the shared parenting, there will be no alcohol in the home or consumed while these children are present. Absolutely no driving while these children are present, while the driver has been consuming alcohol, period. One of our old judges, Alan Wallace, used to say, I don't want any alcohol in your own. That just simply means if you have alcohol in the refrigerator, then that creates an image of alcohol consumption. So just don't have it there when the kids are there with you. Same thing goes with you, Mr. Rye. If it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. You have to live with that. I don't know if you drink or doesn't. There's no allegation that you're consuming alcohol to the excess. We're just going to eliminate that as an issue for these kids and let them not have to worry about whether or not somebody's drinking too much or every day they're drinking alcohol. The other thing I'm going to put down an order on is that only the biological parents will impose physical discipline on these children. Brandon may be a great guy, but he doesn't need to be the one who's imposing physical discipline. I mean, popping them on the bottom like you testified to. That stops now on a temporary basis. I will leave it up to the parties as to whether or not they feel like there needs to be a guardian ad litem. I've heard no proof at this point that would indicate to me that there is a substantial risk of harm or injury to the children once this alcohol issue is eliminated, and I think the parties can agree on a guardian ad litem, or you can file a motion for a guardian ad litem if you deem that to be necessary. But at this point, a guardian ad litem is someone who basically protects the children's interest. At this point, I'm not going to put you to that level, but if the parties can consult or you file a motion and for a guardian ad litem, then whoever hears that motion can certainly appoint a guardian ad litem if necessary. But I would simply reiterate the fact that there may be something has happened that has not really been able to come to light. There are rules regarding allegations made outside of the courtroom and being brought in that have to be very reliable before that type of hearsay can come in. But I am simply saying that these messages that you sent back in February, and they are dated February the 3rd, reflect the very type of relationship that I hope that you two can have in co-parenting. And that is, both of you appreciate the other for what they're doing. Both of you are complimentary towards the other. And I think that if you do that, then these issues can resolve themselves. Communication is the key in any co-parenting relationship. So in any event, this court's ruling is as follows. Number one, the restraining order is dissolved. Number two, parties will go back to their parenting plan that they previously had. She will have the children effective today at 5 o'clock or after school, let's say after school, because of the fact that her week was interrupted by this restraining order. And then when she has the children starting today to the end of the weekend, that they'll exchange on their normal time. That'll give you some of the week you lost. And then you'll go back to the regular week on, week off until a final hearing in this case. And then, as I've stated, there will be no alcohol consumed or possessed by either party when the children are present in your home. Physical discipline will be only imposed by the biological parents. Anything else?
Yes, sir. Well, the court also considering restraining and enjoining both parties from discussing the issues currently pending before the court with the minor children in their presence.
Well, that's a typical scenario. I'm of the opinion that that is an appropriate thing to restrain the parties from discussing any issue about this case with the minor children. Because of the nature of does either side have any opposition to appointing a guardian ad litem at this juncture? I just think the issue being, from Mr. Rye's perspective, the children are allegedly telling him things that cause him concerns. He can't discuss it with them, so he's handicapped by trying to protect his children. The guardian ad litem would be someone who would, in my opinion, would probably be the most appropriate way to do that. Do you have someone other than Ms. Coffenberry who's been sitting in this courtroom that would serve as guardian ad litem?
Ms. Coffenberry or Ms. Ryan?
All right, we'll appoint. Ms. Coffenberry, do you have any problems serving as a guardian ad litem in this case?
I think she represented my client in the divorce.
All right, then that would be a conflict. Let's
say both their families, and so I didn't know if I had done something for her or had talked about something before, but it seemed like it may have been some.
let's I'm not staring off into space because I'm having a spatial problem. I'm thinking about lawyers that I could appoint as a guardian ad litem.
You remember about Miss Stephanie Lowe?
Who?
Stephanie Lowe from Dixon.
Oh, sure, yeah. Stephanie Lowe would be she's now practicing, so I think Stephanie Lowe would be a good one. She's in Dixon County. But we're going to appoint her as a guardian ad litem. That way you have someone that can talk to the children and can protect their interests, and that way it alleviates you from having to discuss it with them. That way, if the kids want to talk to you about this situation, just say, hey, the judge told me I can't talk to you about it. Talk to the guardian ad litem. She's there for you to do this with. Okay? Same thing with you. You know, some issue that comes up with the kids, you tell them that you can't talk to them about it, but you can let the guardian ad litem be their voice. And that's what a guardian ad litem is supposed to do. So, okay?
Yes,
we'll
sir.
appoint the Stephanie Lowe, and then the cost of the guardian ad litem will be paid equally by the parties whenever the time arises, but we'll go from there. All right. Ms. Christina, so I'm gonna ask you to draw this order if you don't mind, and submit it to Ms. Courier for her approval before you submit it to the court.
Yes, sir, I will do so.
Anything else?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. Then
Thank you,
we'll
Norm.
conclude this hearing.
It's really interesting when they have two completely different stories. You know, they said, the dad said, and his wife, I think it was his wife, they said that she is drinking and driving. And she says, I'm breastfeeding. I'm not drinking. And I'm not drinking at all. So what's true? You know, is the boyfriend too much? Maybe he is. Maybe the mom's new boyfriend is just too strong. You know, too strong for these young girls. Maybe he's overbearing, and maybe that's the entire thing. And so they throw in as much as they can about mom. Who knows? Anyway, I guess that's what the guardian ad litem is for. So thank you guys so much for watching this quick one on a Wednesday evening, and I will see you next time.